right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Once again, this is Rob here at Smirking Gun, back again to talk more of our revisiting of The Man in the High Castle's final season. This is part five. Wow, yeah, it's already part five. I don't know as I'm recording this if I think we're going to be doing episodes 6 and 7 in this. I think I can keep it tight enough so that I'm not talking for 2 hours about one episode as I get better. But if you don't know what this is, I was asked by a longtime subscriber and friend to the channel, Adam, to re-look at this show, and it made me look at my old videos of this and where I was because I remember I had contentious feelings about this show at the time and how I'm really rethinking a lot of my positions on the quality of the show's writing and characters, as far as the heroes go and things like that. I think I really have always loved the villains and the villains' arcs. I've always had things to praise about it, but for me, it was always just nagging about the characters, and I just have to admit that I really was kind of wrong about a lot of those opinions. And now we're just re-examining, going deeper, talking about it longer, and bringing up more about what it makes me feel, what it makes me think about watching this show, like I do for every show, basically. So if you like somebody taking more of a personal vlog version of a TV or movie discussion, that's what you kind of get here. We just kind of ramble and talk about our thoughts and things, thoughts and things. Um, so if you like what we're doing here on the channel, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, hit the bell for all notifications. As we start episode 6, which is called All Serious Daring. Look, it's only 2 minutes, and I think I've kept myself on track. So this has three sections that we'll be talking about. There's Juliana, John Smith stuff, and San Francisco stuff. Juliana's going to be first because there's almost nothing here but just where her arc is headed. Where it's headed is a bullet train bound for Crazy Town, as Abinson puts it in his one of his Twilight Zoney, the Man in the Tales from the High Castle videos, where he's hiding codes for Juliana to watch it, to give her messages, to talk to her about where John's going. That's basically it. Juliana wants to go after Helen. She wants to find some way to get into Helen's, life, so that she can, for the sake of her daughters, do something about this. Juliana sees the crack in the marriage. She knows that Helen is basically the same in all the worlds, probably. And even though she's doing this kind of based on visions, Wyatt still can't talk her out of it. And he goes with her. Thank God. Because if you've got Jason O'Mara, you got to use Jason O'Mara. And to separate them would be nuts. He's just really concerned about her because who wouldn't be? She just wants to always run off into these crazy situations alone, and she feels like she has to. But when you look at what this character's been through, she's always felt like it's better off alone because anybody that gets near her dies. Um, and Brad Bellows returns for a second. I think he was the guy that Walter White made say my name. I think that's who that actor is. But he can't talk Wyatt out of going with Juliana. Thank God. Like that. Usually, that's in the scene where somebody says, "I'm gonna go with you to the end," and then somebody else comes and like gives them all the reasons not to go, so that at the end of the episode, right as they're about to take their journey together, they say, "Actually, I can't. This goes against my principles, and the cause needs me here." But no, no, like it's almost like they wanted me to be mad, and then dangled a stupid idea in front of me, and then said, "Oh, so, haha, you thought we were going to do the dumb thing and make Wyatt stay back." But they don't, and that's really her arc outside of. Uh, she figures out Abe's code, which I figured it out once they started talking about it. But it just triggered my memories of the near the end of the show. So I am starting to remember some things as we get closer to the end. But the Statue of Liberty is gone, and they got the new Aryan fucking Christian nationalist looking thing, standing up there. That's absolute. I don't know. I feel like they could have done better. Like that, it makes me feel. I don't know. It's just I don't know what they were going for. Didn't really. I don't know. What do I know? So the next part we're going to talk about is John. John we usually save for his own like big arc. We usually talk about him last because he usually has the biggest like meatiest thing, and he does have it here. But there's just something more important going on in the San Francisco thing, and so we're going to use that for last. Um, but John, at the beginning of this, we find John like the time's ticking down. Things have not gone the way he wanted to. I mean, he's been overwhelmed by this experience and the things that he's hearing over there. He's not accepting, but every time he tries to do something, it gets worse. And Helen sees the darkness. I mean, she's like, it's never been this dark, and you're fighting with people now. Like, you're acting weird. She always knows. That's what she even says. It's like, I always know when you're full of shit, basically. When you're just straight up lying and hiding things. And, just like, bad news piling up. Because it happens like that, Like, just the other day, like three things happened in succession in my family. I won't go into details, but like one thing was happening, and in the middle of that thing happening, another thing happened, and then like the next day, an even worse thing happened. To see like somebody else, like it's just shit. Just when it rains, it pours, man. So Thomas is like comes in and says, "Yeah, guess what? I'm going to Vietnam." um, and John tries to turn this on Helen, but it's like, dude, what are you talking about? Like she's like looking at him like he's going crazy because he just can't keep it straight who he's talking to. And it's like Thomas is they even have it framed almost exactly the same, like when the Marines show up and when the Reich showed up to pick up Thomas in his world, where it's like Thomas is leaving to die again in John's eyes. Like this is all happening again and I couldn't stop it, and it's just switch out, as he sees it, a meat grinder, right? His son's gonna go to Vietnam and just die. There's a good chance, who knows, a lot of people died in all these wars. But yeah, he sees both as a death sentence, and this um he's like, I'm not gonna let this happen, right? Runs off. She's like completely baffled at like what the hell is going on, and that fear of losing a child. Like I don't have kids. I'm a people. A lot of us are people watchers. I mean, I notice things about my own family, and I watch the relationship between like my sister and my nephew, and it's like it's really interesting what people will do for each other, especially a kid. And I was really neglected, so I don't know what this looks like. So like, I actually feel like I really have like no uh, way of really talking about how it must feel like to fear the loss of your child or the potential of losing your kid. It makes a lot of people do a lot of stupid things in this world, though. You know, it really does. But if we're so scared about our kids, like really scared, what's scarier? Them deciding to be another gender or them taking a bullet in the dome at school because we can't do anything about gun legislation in this country. We just want to blame. No, that's as far as I'm going to take this. I'm going to stop myself because I don't need to go on a 20-minute rant. Oh, that's the thing. My stance is clear, right? I don't know why we keep having to lose children in this country because we're so scared of our own fucking. These people are so scared that the government's going to turn on them that they can't realize that we don't need assault rifles in our homes. No one needs an assault rifle. If the government were to ever fucking turn on us folks, there would be nothing we could do about it anyway. like any government, they would just your whatever assault rifle wouldn't do shit. So anyway, I'm not against all guns. I'm just saying nobody needs assault rifles and bazookas and fucking Uzis and other shit to like defend your home or to go hunting. We don't have fucking like goddamn dragons or fucking saber-tooth tigers or Tyrannosaurus rexes to fight. Um so anyway, John returns and he's like just discusses quickly the repercussions of messing with things. This is him trying to figure out how to fix what's going on in those worlds and in both worlds. Abinson knows how to push John's buttons, and he does, because that's all he's got now is to just rebel and push back. Because you can just kill me, just kill me. He doesn't care. It'd be all over for him. And we switch over to like his daughter, who's just, I'm an Aryan girl. And do you still love that? Like, this girl is scary. The actress is doing such a good job, and Helen's just like, no matter what she says, this kid just, every answer out of her mouth is like the scariest things you'd ever want to hear a kid say. You don't, if you you can't love your family if you don't love your race. Holy shit. So like, yeah, indoctrination is a thing. And they did it in school. And guess what they were doing? They weren't teaching kids about critical race theory. they were they were doing their own version. They were of critical race theory, which is called rewriting history for their own means, to just keep your fucking kids in this whole evil cycle that has been going on in this world for too long. And then when you say and things start to change, when people start to think for themselves, everybody goes, indoctrination. They're being indoctrinated. And the thing is they're already fucking indoctrinated. We're already fucking indoctrinated, just about all of us, by a certain age, by our families' belief systems and everything else. And we are choices taken away from so many people. And then, so it's not that they don't want indoctrination, just like they don't want fascism. They just want their indoctrination and their fascism. Don't you understand, everybody? It's just that we just have to keep giving them what they want. The older people that see that everything is changing, and just like all generations that fight against the system and for the system, it just continues on and on and on. We make 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. We're always in this constant stalemate with each other, and it needs to stop. It needs to change now, man. If anything gets hurt in this, man, it's, if you're younger out there, it's time to like fucking tell these old fucks that enough is enough. Well, this did go somewhere, didn't it? So Helen wants to know about how she's finding out all this stuff. And she talks about how one of her teachers, or chemistry teacher, he went to one because he's a degenerate. She's like, a lot of these people don't come back. She just like shrugs, like, yeah, whatever. Oh my God. Like she sees her kid is just gone. And they talk about the replacement mommy, played by Rachel Nichols. He doesn't really get much to do here, but just be there being a scary housefrau. That makes me wonder, is she the replacement mommy? Like, yes, she's there to spy. Yes, she's there to help the little girls stay on their track to being good Aryan women. But is she also like possibly there to, like, if something were to say happen to Helen, they just go, well, here, you've already got Martha here. She can be your new representative in this new system. And I don't think they'd give John a choice. They'd say, you can go to any hall you want. Just she must be the face. And they'd have her standing out there with the girls, just all kinds of shit, pretending for the cameras, which happens even now today. Everybody positioning themselves, fake photos, using their families as shields, and these fake phony lives that they have that are supposedly so godly. I mean, you look at people like Lauren, and like this is gonna be great when it's like I watch this in like 10 years or something. But like like the whole Lauren Boebert thing, who she's like standing up in front of churches and shit, being like this good Christian woman, and everything in the last year has basically said she's exactly the opposite, and it's been happening openly in front of everyone. Now, by the time anybody really like, will there ever be consequences for people like that when they could just do whatever they want? Yeah, I don't know. But John's story kind of ends with Helen noticing John's different after he comes back, and that some things just never change. She just knows. They just know each other so well. They've been through so much together. She's seen the good version of him and the bad version of him, and she's freaking out because she wants to understand about this. He wants to blow out this whole Martha thing that's in going on, but it's not like about Martha. Like he just wants it to be, oh, we just need this because of bodyguards and shit. She's like, but it's not. I'm in a fucking cell. She doesn't ask him where he goes, what he does, but she's in a cell and she doesn't see an end. Like, where does it end? Like this constant, like this can only, like, what happens when you reach the end of this? What is it all for? And that's basically where his arc ends for this, or this, his story ends for this episode. So it's a lot. And I went there, I guess. The last bit is all the stuff that happens in San Francisco, where you got Keto's kid, Turo. He's just straight up in an opium den now after being kicked out, trying to, bury his PTSD and all the things he did. But for him, it's just all there. So now he's just like stoned and all there. So he's just going down. He's just stumbling into the gutter towards death. Now, the biggest part of this is Keto's story. And there's Childen and the BCR in here. So, like, quickly, we'll talk about Childen. His Childen's basically full circle now. After he talked about, like, where he began starving, eating mice, hiding, to somehow becoming what he was able to become in this world, selling off uh, memorabilia from Americana, and you selling it to the occupation, the Japanese. And it was like this kind of phony status. A lot of people don't realize there's a lot of phony status out there, and that you're only as good until you're not valuable anymore to somebody. And it can happen really fast. I've noticed like a lot of people will suddenly talk to you if you're supporting whatever. I didn't notice at the time. I thought, oh my gosh, like I'm just doing good, and I'm like just people are starting to notice me, and it was like, yeah, they noticed you, but then they wanted to just use you, and then once it was like conveniently, oh, like if something, the moment something passes, it's over, and you're just like, wait, what? um, so that's kind of how he is, and but his Yuki code, kind of puts him in his place a little bit, because it's like, you think that this is bad? I had to marry my rapist. And she goes into detail of what happened to her as a girl. That, her father, and this is the most messed up part, is this guy was coming for the girls in their town, and this guy, her father hired this guy named to threaten the guy who was coming. And so it worked, and the guy left, and no girls got taken. But later, that guy came back, took her in the field, forced himself on her, and her father, who just stopped all this from happening, made her marry him. And that the day that guy died, and we don't know how he died, or maybe she did say, I don't know. I just like to imagine that some accident befell him. Um, and that was the day she was born. And she says that we will outlive these men. And it's another thing that it made me think of like just the the we used to really care about what happened to our women when it came to like assaults and stuff. And now it feels like it's gotten worse somehow. We used to like, like people would make jokes about if you did certain things when you went to jail, you'd, as soon as the other prisoners knew what you were, you'd be really in trouble for it. But these days it feels like, and I don't know why men's egos and the Christian egos are so similar. Oh, wait. Both of them deal with control and power. That's right. That's right. It's written right here. And I don't know, guys. We can do better than this. And I'm not, to all of you out there that's like, that's not me, motherfucker. I know. I know. I'm talking to the ones that this is, to the ones that this should bother. But anyway, to return to the VCR, which is in chaos, um, they're trying, I mean, of course, they're trying to regroup after this ambush, took out the head of their rebellion. So, it's expected that there's going to be some problems going on here. It'd be hard not to want to go underground after something like this happens. It's either you have like two choices here. You either run like hell or you have to double down. You have to like move forward because they're coming. Um, but this is also where we find out that at 13, she has this conversation with another woman, but Belle talks about being fixed. That she thought she was going somewhere for a reward, and they took away her ability to breed. They're going to breed them out. Almost like it's better than putting you in a camp and killing you. We let you live your life, what little life we'll let you have. And then when you're gone, you'll just be like an extinct animal. And even though this is happening to a whole race, they've chosen to do this to the women, maybe to the men too, I don't know. But it again brings up the taking away of choice from women. And this show, they did it like this is 2019 when they did this, and probably filmed in who knows when, 2018 it could have been. So this show is already looking at the possibility of this is what it looks like, this is where it can head, you know, when certain people get their way, this is where it can lead. And we're seeing it already with states like what the hell is going down in another place down south, and how it's scrambling, and how like we are arguing about these archaic things that were taken care of, and we keep having to slap back at it. Any little tiny thing that the Christians think is a pushback against them, when it's not. It has nothing to fucking do with them. It's just about sharing the world with the rest of that world that isn't them. And I do need to just kind of say one thing. All right. I know that not all Christians fall in the category of the kind of Christians I'm talking about. And I did go after, or I was talking about the good Christians, the one who call themselves good Christians. I know that there are plenty of people out there that are Christian that are also good people. And it's hard, though, when the majority of your experiences with Christian people is not, if the majority of the time it has been negative, then you're probably in the minority of something. You should really think about that because everybody wants to think they're this, that, and the other. And it's not until some serious self reflection on what we believe and how we treat people that we can really ascertain whether or not we're good at anything, let alone being a Christian. So, anyway, because I mean, these things that people do you know like how many people are affected by these? When you have choice taken away. And what should you do? What's the response to that? Well, Bell's response to that is to say we need to blow up part of the oil pipeline of the Japanese because that's their lifeblood. We want them out. Well, let's just cut off their blood supply. And they do find the means to destroy the pipeline, and that's where their story ends. The big, to me, episode thing, biggest plot point, the biggest character part is the keto stuff here because they're so far throughout this season. I mean, it's episode 6. We still got 7, 8, 9, 10 to go. But in this, he has this moment where, I mean, the pressure on him of country duty, it comes to a head here where he's hiding this confession tape from his report. He's supposed to go to the trial for Inakuchi, put him on trial for treason, and just sentence him to death. But he has the confession, but instead of taking it with him, he leaves it behind. He leaves the tape behind. And he goes there, and Keto hears the truth from the guy. And again, people keep telling him the truth, and that he knows these things. He has seen these things. His son tells him the truth. He is just that person, just like John is that keeps hearing the truth and not accepting it because it means what did they do any of this for? That all of it was for how many lives did they destroy? All of it. So they're desperately looking, they're holding on to honor and duty over what's right, what's in their families. When all they're being is they're just part of somebody else's plans. You know, it was about survival at one point for John, at least. It's always probably been about honor to Keto. Where does it all take him? Where does it all get you when everything is destroyed around you? Doesn't that tell you something about like if everybody wants is telling you that like this isn't like in fucking Civil War where Cap gets told, you know, move when you can, but when you can't, don't. There's an opposite to that too. And it's like there's just this like plain old I can't be wrong. If I admit I'm wrong, it means I'm weak. It means I'm not a man. And that's not true. It just means you're a regular ass person who makes mistakes. And even as big a mistake as people can make, you can always trust that if you do the right thing, eventually people will say that at least about you. Is that eventually you took responsibility. We talk about so many people who just escape history. Hitler just blew his brains out, you know? Oh, fuck. It didn't work. Oh, well. And just like that, a man who is responsible for all these deaths just gets to walk away. Um, but you know, he's just it's to the point now of ridiculousness almost though because there is just so much overwhelming. And they talk about the okay, so the crown princess finally notices like Inakuchi's not around. But they right away they just like ignore her. They not arrest her. I'm using little quotation marks in the air right now, literally, where she just gets put in her place and sent back to where she's staying and says she can't go nowhere. Turn off her phones, and Keto is just again. And this is the phrase I think that changed things for Keto, which is the guy walks up, the general walks up to him and he goes, "Remember the cause." But isn't the cause always Japan? isn't the cause their honor and their duty? And like, and as soon as that gets said, it's like this, you can see the like little switch flip. We used to not talk about it like this, like we're in a rebellion. And so they're in like the trial and they're just pushing and pushing on Keto till he just, I mean, and it just keeps going. And in this show, this is not one of those shows that generally does the thing that you want in a really tense situation where it's like, how are the good guys going to get out of it? And you wait to the very last second and then something happens to get the hero out of the situation. This is not that show. Generally, what's going to happen happens. Like the bad thing happens, not the good thing. People don't step in. Um, and Keto does try to stop it, but he doesn't press it. He goes up again to the general, says, "We know who did this. It's not this guy." And it's just like the guy, so he can say, "Have you fallen this low, man? Have you really like you're just gonna let people just your own people get executed for doing the right thing? Like we're supposed to like be for each other, and now we're all turning on each other because of this occupation and what it's making us do when we're like we've got so many other problems to deal with." And it's like you don't like you're not on the side of the Japanese, but at the situation that they're in, like it's all like when you watch their plot going on, like it's their struggle is fascinating to watch. um but when I say they don't usually do this cliche, this is the one time it happened, and it was because they've been building to this. So this is a good use of the cliche, because when they're supposed to execute this guy, Keto stops. And for the life of me, part of me was like, oh, he's just going to shoot him himself. And that's going to be another brutal scene that this show has where the guy's like, I have so much honor. I will kill you myself. Like when you think he's going to save him. But in this case, he actually does. He actually turns on the general, shoots the guy that killed Tagomi, that confessed. I think it's I can't remember the guy's name from the tape, Ijima or something. Shoots him, and they take the general into custody. And he watches the man who killed Tagomi die. And Keto gives the evidence over to the crown princess, and he just says it was my duty, nothing more. And it really did come down to that. Was like these guys no longer care about any of this. And she's right. She's talking about that this thing has turned everybody on against each other. And now they've between Keto and the Crown Princess, they got to figure out a way to change things for their trajectory. So that is the end of episode 6's discussion, and we're going to be jumping right into episode 7 in a blink of an eye. But for me, it's going to be probably about an hour and a half. So I'll see you guys in a second. But in real time, I'll see you in about 90 minutes. All right. So now we're talking about episode 7, No Masters But Ourselves. A huge episode. Now there's 3 episodes left, and this huge, massive thing happens. In the BCR Japanese occupation side of things. Again, Juliana is just the slow march to her destiny, and John in this episode gets help from Helen to win favor back with the Reich and get their trust back, because they're pretty much on the chopping block. This might be even faster than the last one, so I hope it's not too much. We'll see how sidetracked I get with my own thoughts. But Juliana, again, and a lot of her stuff now is going to be tied with John Smith, so it was almost kind of like I almost wanted to just include her in his thing, but it's still just enough because at the beginning of this, Juliana's in Harlem. She arrives in Harlem with Wyatt and his little cadre of guys, after seeing the Statue of Liberty gone. And they're squatting in a family home, and it's like it harkens back to all the people that were just taken in Europe when Hitler just moved in and didn't nobody had any chance to grab their stuff, and so you're just these whole areas filled with what are basically, you know, like these haunted houses of memories of people that were there. You know, you'd think that they were just here. You know, there's, you know, now all these years later, I mean, all these years later, the shit is still there. 20 years, this stuff has just been sitting there. Like the memory of these people is there. Nobody's even bothered. It's like it's already like it's in the 1960s, and then part of this country is still just this like Fallout type dystopia without the radiation. Well, in some places there's radiation, and I don't know. It's just it's getting scary thinking about like just how these things happen and then they happen again. And I'm starting to wonder when it's going to happen again here this time. Um, and they discuss, her and Wyatt discuss, and this was an interesting little moment about being other people. You know, they're talking about the disguises and uh, whether this one works or not and who you got to be. And it comes to the bigger questions of like, as she's talking, you know, that she's discussing like what from the start where she was in her life, and then through all these different situations, who she was, you know, is now who she is, and there's different versions of her. And when you stop being, you know, being able to keep putting on different skins and personalities to the point of like, who are you, you know, like what parts of yourself have changed by choice and which ones have happened by circumstance, or like have you been, you know, pressured or forced into to survive. And he talks about, you know, like, you know, the version of himself, like we everybody keeps talking about the different versions of themselves, like the choices that they made that where they were one and then became someone else with Keto or John Smith. And you know, Wyatt's talking about it, and she says, you know, well, it's because those people give up. You want to be that person, give up. And that's, look at look at how many people have become this person. You know, I again, I look to my platform here where you can like see where good content creators, people that were just regular ass content creators, you know, maybe they had some weird ideas in the backs of their heads, but they, you know, they were good content creators, but things weren't moving fast enough for them. So they decided to capitalize, you know, like, hey, it's capitalism, man, you know, like it's I got to do what I got to do. But it's like, well, what they really have done when these good content creators have suddenly become grifters and liars and indoctrinators and people who just want to like, they see themselves as like fucking, you know, I don't want to say Robin Hood, but you know, they see themselves as these kind of heroes that are bucking the system and society, and this is going to be their legacy. And really, what it is they gave up on their actual original ideals to latch on to fake ones because it gets them more successful, and they just give up. They give up on being who they were, at least publicly. Privately, who knows? But at this, you know, at this point, like they've become what they are imitating, and it's just like you see, and even then, and this is the reason I bring it up to like the content creator level, right? Is because this is like such a small thing, right? Yeah, influencers and other things kind of disgust me, like, but it's just the evolution of our communication and shit. And for better or for worse, or for however long it lasts, this is where we're at. And I think the best way to understand it is like educate yourself about it, right? I don't know everything about this whole thing, but this is kind of like I'm just showing like these are just regular ass people who have decided to become these other people to just for to this is what they want their legacy to be, and they don't care that it's awful. It's as long as they can say, to their kids, that a long time ago, Uncle Critical Drinker and Uncle Jeremy Griggs and Uncle all, insert chud fuckface here, that I once had, that he had millions of people listening to his ignorant bullshit. People give up and then become these lies, and they profit off it, and it's fine. Hey, it's all good, right? It's the American fucking way. But I mean, that's what you got to do, folks. That's what I'm talking to. Like kids out there, if this is what you truly want. Because like when I was 14, and I'm going off on a tangent here, fuck it. All right, so if we're gonna talk about these motherfuckers, right? So like I was, I'm talking to the like young guys out there on YouTube, right? If you're like, I swear, I don't even know. Like, I feel like I almost have to go all the way to like 8 years old. Is that far back enough? The ones that are watching this kind of stuff, of these 50-year-old men my age. I'm not 50, thank God, but who have taken it upon themselves to talk to these, which they're a huge amount of their audience. There's a big ton of their audience that's also like in my age group, but the other end of that spectrum is the younger guys that are like 8 to like, I don't know, when's the cutoff for when you wake up from the fucking brainwashing of these assholes, right? What's the cutoff? Because obviously it's a weird scale, but let's call it like, let's just put the grouping in at like the 8 to like 17-year-olds, right? When you're still a minor. And when I was all those ages, I thought I knew so much. I really did, man. I still do. Some of me, it still holds on to some of those like, I'm this, I'm that, the world is this because of that. It's not my fault, but like when you're that age, I get it, man. You're somebody else. You're going through a lot. You want to know why girls don't like you, and you want to know why this is difficult and why that's difficult and why it's just, and you got these people that want you to blame all these other things, but it's just life. We go through these awkward phases of being around girls and societal situations and awkward situations, and we live in these little bubbles, and we live in these little vacuums and echo chambers, and we just feel bad, and we want to hear the same people like feeling the same way, but like it's the solutions and the people that give you these like, this is why it's bad for you, and this is why you're not enjoying things. And the thing is, man, is that if your first instinct is to just hate something, there's and not even like think about it, if you always just release, your emotional side of things, and don't actually think about anything that's presented in front of you, whether or not like what speaks to you in the heart and who you really are. All right. You got to like don't let other people tell you how to think or feel. You can listen. You want to listen to people like me or any of these other people. That's fine. You want to hear our voices. Go ahead and listen to our voices, but it doesn't mean that you have to take everything that any of us say as like some kind of holy thing. You have to have your own truth. Being part of a thing is great. Being part of a club is great. Being part of like these, it's like a gang mentality of like, we got to just stick together in these toxic, terrible things. Whether it's a gang on the street that does what it has to survive, or if you're in online spaces where there are basically giant gangs of people that like say they think and act the same, and it's all this person's fault, or all this gender's fault, or all this race's fault. Man, the whole world has got problems, and they don't all come from like these things that you think that they're coming from. Mostly it's just life, and you don't need to listen to these guys tell you what in your heart you should already know is wrong. Being part of something doesn't mean you should like change who you are. just to fit into a group of things. Because right now, you think that this is like this time, that time in your life when you're in it back then, it feels like forever. It feels like you're going to be stuck and never have like the things that you want. And you're never going to get the girl and you're never going to have the money. But the thing is like you have time in front of you, and that's all it takes is time. And once you're out of school and you can go to college or go into the workforce and you join society, you'll start to see that these things that these guys say is a load of horse shit. Life is hard enough. Enjoy things. Don't listen to these brainwashers, man. Think for yourselves, man. And if you say, well, thinking for myself, I still come to these conclusions, well, then, that's between you and whatever you believe in. Okay. Wow. I lost my fucking train of thought. I think I was just talking about Juliana, yep, and giving up and going bad. And I have to pause it so I can get a drink of water. All right, so getting back to the main story, now that that's over with, we are talking about John, who, because of Thomas's decision in the other world to go to Vietnam, he's got his guys working on a report that, about that world's US's capabilities against Vietnam. And he's being assured that the US technological and army advances that they've made mean that like Vietnam is just going to get smoked. But like John talks about like people like in history that were underestimated, like Hannibal, who were all considered primitives, and that tech does not just mean a victory. And he's got people just watching Thomas like around the clock. So he's got spies everywhere. Now think about this, man. How many like of their own guys did they lose? I guess I don't know. Did they send people over there with a list of all their men and said, "Hey, when you get over there, you need to find out if any of how many of these people are dead, so we know who to send over." That's crazy. Um, but we got like the Hausfrau lady again here. That's Himmler's wife, who's just there once again to be creepy and scary and tell Helen basically how awful their situation is and how close to death they really are. That everyone knows about you. You're a neutral zone. Everyone by that means Berlin, and there's this huge amount of like pressure from Berlin and at motherland. Those people there, like think about where like how they think about themselves over there. They're basically like rulers. They must feel like rulers of the earth. So the opinions that are going on there, if it's like them, it's like watching America, like the show. Like they see everything that's going on here on their televisions, right, through the news. And so they're just back judging us like they're watching like a fucking reality show. And the opinions of like whoever's in charge over there, are we representing the Reich good enough? Are we representing the motherland good enough? This lady is just, man. Um, but Helen is there committed because of her fear of what has become of her daughters. Jennifer is beside herself at all times and is going to get herself killed. And Amy, like she is so indoctrinated, it's probably like she would need some serious like re-education herself, which is a word that deprogramming basically. But that's what they call it. Everybody has a term for this awful thing that has to happen to people that have been like, I never went through it, so I'm still stuck with my post-traumatic stress disorder probably. I don't know. I've never been diagnosed, but I'm pretty sure I keep getting told by other people that I sound like I have it. Um, uh, don't want to lose my thing. So she goes on TV. Like basically she's told like John's under suspicion and what happens to the children and all this shit. Like it's this lady just threatened all of it with like such a coy little thing because she's like, I care though. Those people, all those people that do things to us, that make the choices for us, they do it because they care. Remember that, folks. They do it because they care. Because we're just not doing the right thing. So they care so much that they're going to set us straight. There are a whole lot of people like that right now. Well, enough of them. Mm. So she goes on TV, like on the Reich's version of like Martha Stewart, except back then it would be more like Julia Child, I think, and gets public support. And she's nearly thrown off, right? But she throws the because she has the whole the Reich saved my baby. We were lowly shit heel Americans until the Reich showed up and gave us things. And when they ask who else was there, and that's again that question, like everything is built, like even if this question is innocent, it doesn't sound innocent coming out of any of these people's mouths. It's almost like they're like, we would like to give you the opportunity to rat yourself out now so that we can all go, we knew it. You're not one of us. It's just terrifying to have to live like that. John's watching it on TV like his brain vessels are about to explode out of his head, and the guy next to him, when she asked the question about who else was there, he looks like he's about to put a gun in his mouth. But it all plays out okay, I guess, for the time being. um, but Helen, he confronts her. She's like, "Look, we got to be able to go back to normal. We have to like do this for the girls. This." And like, does he ever think about Daniel? Like, don't you ever like? He's like, no, no, I don't, because she has no idea what he's been through uh, on the other side, because he won't tell her. And poor Jennifer's when she talks about she's walking with this little twat named Henry, who look that she's his like there's Liesel, no, who is the Rolf from fucking Sound of Music. Henry is Jennifer's Rolf. And because listen to this kid, he's like, "Oh, well, there's this really great Aryan girl that I should be with that likes me, right?" But the thing is he says it like, yeah, because you think different. Girls out there, if a Rolf ever shows up and acts like, hey, I'm great and I should go with your the hottest girl in the school, but I pick you because you're different, he's gonna try to fuck you up. So let Rolf go after that pretty girl and leave you alone. Anyway, to each his own though. But they talk about the science and how this. What if this science is bullshit? He's like, what are you talking? Like, I just want to pass this. She's like, well, they're making us fill other races' skulls with birdseed to find out what their intelligence levels were. So that they're just giving them bullshit science so that they're just completely against everyone. But it's just the lengths. Somebody had to sit down and go, how do we completely brainwash a public by re-education and erasing history? And again, why are we so why are so many people here in this country willingly? How, like, they're the ones that are ashamed that they have to forget this past because everybody won't let them forget. But the thing is, we won't let you forget because you won't change. And if you just keep with this thing, the only people that should be like, oh gosh, like, if you're not going to be part of the solution, just get out of the way. That's the nice way I was going to put it. I was about to go down a very dark path that even I did not want to go down. But Jennifer is being spied on both sides. She's got her own people watching her, and we've got Juliana spy who gets all the information about Helen that they need and that where they're going to be. So they've got that. And that is pretty much it. Because other than what happens at the very end, what happens with Japan, when John Smith sees it, he has his own reaction. So the last bit here is about the BCR and the big terrorist attack from the BCR to the Japanese, because that's what it is. It's terrorism, but it's, one person's terrorist is another person's liberator. Um, and you got the BCR has made their bombs. We got the whole, it's the very speech time, talk about the risks. This is why we do it. For fighting for a freedom that we've never had. And, they're the whole thing in this, and it's just my own thing, and we're going to talk about it. It's just, they want their own little chunk of the West Coast for Japan. And again, so much of their arc is this fight to get that, and I can't help but undercut it every time with like, that's great, but once, if you do get what you want from Japan, the Reich, you've already talked about how they're breeding you out. Do you think that they will even let you have that little piece of land? In America, they'd call that a reservation if they let you keep it, but they probably wouldn't let them keep it. So it's a bit of a, like, it's like just clawing, and just like, we'll have to cross that bridge when we get there. But I don't know, it's not bad storytelling, it's just, they're so in the moment that they don't have the, what's the word I'm looking for, but they just can't think about that right now. They haven't thought that, like, they're not worried about thinking that far ahead right now. But Tito, he brings Yamori, the general who was finally arrested for killing Tagomi, his list of crimes, that he's like, well, you see a list of crimes, but I see a list of duties. And that's a huge thing. That's, like, what's, when they say, oh, well, I did this under orders. And I think it basically, what is it, that the Onion Knight or whatever, from Game of Thrones. I don't know why I'm forgetting the character's name right now, but he tells, like, if your king, tells you to kill a bunch of people, you probably, I'm paraphrasing, but you probably should find a new leader. If somebody makes you do things like that. And he talks about how, his kids died. Yomori's like, my kids died in this fight. If we give up, if we don't keep fighting until the last man, then my two kids died for nothing. And that's just such a selfish way of coping. Like, I will kill like, holy God. Like, think about that. Think about how many people's motivations is based off of something so simple. How many things in history have happened because it's been kicked off because of that one, like, person's, like, own personal selfishness. I don't know. But also, cooperation from this guy is also, a loss. Like I said, it's like, war is not lost until the last man dies. That's his stand on it. Like, it's just, the true believers, man. True believers are scary. Um, there's some stuff that it's just like, yeah, we have a scene of the BCR preparing for what's about to be a suicide mission. Um, and then Childen plays like this pretty interesting part here, because he's caught. He's brought in. They try to hide him, but he doesn't. He's now reading books, and instead of worrying about them being, like, kept for historical purposes or for selling, boy, he's taken in front of Keto, who wants to know. Like, he doesn't care where the BCR members are. He wants to know who they are. He wants to know, like, you were there with them. Tell me about them. And Childen tells him, like, these, and he tells it to him in the way he thinks he wants to hear him speak about it. It's a really interesting character, um, because he's living in this world and he's always very aware of how to talk. So even if he could speak freely and just talk like a normal American would without worrying about the like the social mores of Japanese culture and whatever, he says it in a very like calling them savages and wild, but they're also very shrewd and smarter and talking about like at some point, Keto says like they're like you have a wild dog and whether or not you should free the dog and let him run away or put it down. And a question of of its will to hold the territory. And Childen's response is like, these people have been fighting for over 400 years. You're just this week's enemy. And it's true. I mean, that's like been the experience. Is like I could sit here as a white guy born in 1975, and I have not known, like, I have known poverty, I've known struggle, I have known mental and physical abuse, I have known serious neglect, but I've not struggled in the same way that, like, I still go to sleep on a pillow and I can wake up in the morning and never worry about the same things that someone from another race does. The possibilities that another race has. And when it's really, when you wake up and that actually is a, you could, like a kid going to school these days, you know, you're just, what's the next problem and what's the newest problem that could get me killed today? So fighting for 400 years and then boom, explosion. I tried, I was about to be really loud and then I realized there's somebody else sleeping. So I almost went really loud. So it turned into this boom. But yes, a huge explosion happens everywhere. All the bombs are going off. The Crown Princess's hotel gets rocked. Keto yells to Children to get out of there. Sneak attack, man. Pearl Harbor happened in both worlds. But this time, the BCR has their own sneak attack up and down the coast, all over the place. You know, and again, there's an announcement that they take responsibility. The BCR says, we did this, and this is for our homeland. And again, it's like nice, but again, once the Reich gets knows that nothing's going to be in their way, your days are numbered too. The Emperor comes on, and everybody's freaking out because this is a big deal to everyone. Because like the Emperor is like the Emperor from fucking Star Wars, man. Nobody saw the guy, right? You're not. That's the thing is these big, powerful people, like they were not seen by people. It's only in modern days where we have these people, and I don't even know. Like it's hard not to almost call them rulers because I think they think of themselves as rulers, but they're like billionaires and shit. That like we used to never know who these people were, but that was a good thing, I guess. But the Emperor shows up like, oh my god, and he says like, we're out. Like once they're told like, can we hold the territory? We can. Keto's like, we can, man. But a whole lot of people are gonna die, and I no longer believe that it's worth it. That we should not do this any longer. So the Emperor, after the princess gets it, 2 days later announces that their departure of occupied forces are going to leave the JPS and move against China. And everybody is like, it's happening, it's happening. The moment is happening. And it is a victory. But it's just the smaller force the one that had more pressure on it than the other side, had to give up. It wasn't because they cared about us, they cared about themselves more, and that's what happens. And now the Reich, as John Smith says, is going to be one nation again. Now, in that one nation, is there a chance then for John Smith maybe to take this country back? I can't remember if that's where the plot goes in John's head, but we'll see in part 6 of this, where we'll maybe be covering 8 and 9. But so far, yeah, we got these 2 episodes in just over an hour. We said a lot of things. If you liked it, good. If you didn't, I don't care. It's fine. If I said something and I need to be fact checked or whatever, put it in the comment section. That's all good. Just keep it respectful. Otherwise, you're gone, man. So, anyway, have a great day, and we will see you on the next Revisiting the Man in the High Castle final season, part 6. Bye.